what kind of gear I use, and why. Coming up right now. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Dan Amesqua with Amesqua Multimedia and Marketing. I've been shooting with a Nikon for about 15 years now. The reason why I've been shooting with Nikon is simply because my dad had a Nikon and I started using his camera. I got a D90, ended up shooting with my dad's D2X, and one of the first things I realized was even though the D2X was Nikon's flagship camera at the time, it didn't have as many features as my newer, updated Nikon D90. Shortly after that, I ended up getting this D800. Around the time that I got this D800, I ended up learning about Zach Arias. And Zach Arias had this theory about gear acquisition syndrome. So gear acquisition syndrome is basically the subtle art of buying you don't need. You should buy a lens, learn what it does, get to know it so well that you don't even need to look through the camera to know what it's going to look like. So one of the things I really wanted to do was kind of get myself into the groove of knowing exactly what I was going to see before I even looked through the viewfinder. So one of the lenses that I purchased initially was this 105 macro. The 105 macro became one of my go-tos simply because I could do a lot with it that was kind of unexpected. At the time I was shooting a lot of beauty, and so I was taking a lot of close-up pictures of makeup and faces. I could take tons of portraits. Well, as I went out into the field, I started to realize I knew exactly how far away a person needed to be in order to get this person in full length with this lens. Ever since then, I just kind of have fallen in love with the fact that this lens works for me in almost every situation. Having said that, this lens works great if you're working in a close-up setting, but if you're gonna try and shoot full length, 3/4 length in a studio setting, probably best to use a 24-70 just to get that wider field of view. So in order to shoot somebody full length, you're gonna need to step way back in the studio, so you're gonna have to have a lot of depth. Not very user-friendly in that regard. I'd highly recommend getting a 24-70 if you're going to be shooting in studio settings. If you're shooting real estate, you're gonna need even wider. I actually started in real estate, and so I ended up picking up this ProMaster. It's a cheap knockoff lens. It's a 12-24, probably got this thing for like 100, 200 bucks. I've had it for 15 years and it's actually one of my favorite lenses. Super sharp, does the job, gets it done. So one of the interesting things about this lens is the fact that you can't actually use it on a full frame camera. So like I said, I initially had a Nikon D90. The D90 is what's called a DX format, or a crop sensor. And this one is a FX or full frame sensor, and therefore it can only shoot at 24. If I try to zoom out, it actually gives me a fisheye or a I'll just have to show you an example. So as you can see here, the picture is looking a little bit bowed. It's also got that weird halo effect around the outside. That's actually seeing the barrel of the lens. Not the prettiest of pictures. One other feature I wanted to talk about. Having a battery grip. One of the things that I've really come to love after using my dad's Nikon D2X, I got really used to shooting this format, and you can't really do that without having to do that. The thing that's nice about it is it does give you an extended use of time. So when I'm out there shooting, several times now I've gone out onto shoots where I've needed to have way more battery power, and this just lets me continue to shoot all day long. So that's about it for my gear and why I use the Nikon D800. Just as a quick update, I'm one of those people who do not believe that it's the camera, it's the tool that you have. I have used this camera, like I said, forever now. I got this thing brand new when the D800 just barely came out. A lot of technology has been updated. There's a new thing called IBIS. I've been shooting a lot of video, and IBIS is something that helps keep your shot steady when you're shooting. I am hoping to be able to upgrade soon and get into either a Canon or a Sony. I did try the new Nikon Z6 and the Z7. I kind of like the idea of Canon's new technology that's coming out in the R5. Sony A7R4, I recently shot that. Was highly impressed. I was shooting almost in pitch black situations and was still getting amazing autofocus out of it. Absolutely loved that. So Sony, Canon, you both have my pick right now. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you have any questions. Hit me up in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks. What kind of gear I use with? Oh my God. Yeah.